Well, the last one was we ended up in Nelson on the Kettle Valley line. Now and Uncle Tom picked us up and drove us the 40 odd miles up to Kaslo. 45 miles, I think it is.
Uphill?
Well, it's up the lake.
Okay.
See, Nelson is situated on the Kootenai River. And the Kootenai River runs into Kootenai Lake up at Creston, runs out of the lake in the middle of the lake at Belfer. Belfer is halfway between Nelson and Kaslo.
So the river goes through the lake?
So yeah, in a sense. That lake is, one end of the lake is the Largo River runs into the other end. There's a real current runs down that lake. You put a balloon, like we put a balloon out in the middle of the lake, and again that balloon, you put the balloon and then you put about 50-foot line and some sort of a device underneath the water, and you can see the balloon going against the waves. It's so strong underneath the current underneath there. And they both meet at Belfer, the lake from the Kootenai Lake River and the Largo River, come down and they meet in the middle. It's the only lake in the country that drains from the middle.
Oh.
Yeah, and then of course the Kootenai River goes down and goes into the Columbia River at Kaslo. You got all sorts of dams and one thing or another on it. That's how the Kokanee got up there originally into the Kootenai Lake, because they came up the river years before there were dams.
This is the Kootenai River?
Yeah, they come up the Kootenai River, yeah, from the Columbia. And they came up there and they got landlocked. The Sockeye got landlocked, and that's how come they got Kokanee now, all up through there. And you go into the Okanagan Lake also. And once you get to Kaslo on that road at that time, there was no blacktop, and there was a ferry at Nelson that went across to the other side of the lake, and you went on the west side of the lake to get to Kaslo, opposite side of Nelson City. So you had to go up there and get onto this ferry, and the ferry was a cable ferry. You've seen them or heard of that maybe, but a cable ferry, which just has two cables, one on each side, operated by one motor, and away you go across there, and they just tows you back and forth. You go back. We don't need it hasn't got a propeller or any of that stuff on it. Then you get to Belfer, and at that time there was a ferry called the Anscombe. Where that came from, I don't know, but the Anscombe came out of my head again. And it ran from Belfer to Kootenai Bay. And this is the way the Greyhound bus went in the whole trip, You get on the bus in Nelson, go across the little ferry, drive up to Belfer, pick up more passengers in Belfer, and just drive another couple hundred yards down to the dock, and the Anscombe would pick you up and take you over to Kootenai Bay on the other side of the lake. And it would take about an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. You had time to have a coffee or breakfast or something on the boat. It really didn't go very fast, And then you get off that ferry in Kootenai Bay, and you go on the windiest road you've ever been on in your life, just like a snake. You couldn't get up to 30 mile an hour, being about it,
Is it still there?
Oh yeah, it's still there. And to this day, it's just the same thing. And it goes to Creston. That's how you get that. Then is the only way you could get to Creston. Of course, now you go over the Skyway or whatever they call that new road they put up over the top of the mountain, But it was quite an ordeal to get to Creston.
Nelson, was there any mining there?
Yeah, it was a hub. Nelson was a kind of a hub for all around Nelson, which included Kaslo. They did get their supplies from Nelson.
And Trail?
Yeah.
Was that a mine?
Yeah, Trail would be the smeltering end of things. Nelson was more the supply. See, Nelson had the train traffic.
You mean the supply passed through Nelson from other places?
Well, because Nelson was the end of the Kettle Valley line. That was before trucking days.
And that was the end of the railway line, did you say?
That was the end of that line. And then the Kaslo Slocan took over from that. And they would go as far as, I think they called it Harrop, up just about to Belfort.
So the distance between Nelson and Kaslo, there was no, at 40 miles there were no railway lines.
No, not on that side of the road. On the opposite side, on the Nelson side, the railroad tracks came up. It came all the way up to the other, just about to Belfort on the other, but on the other side of the lake. They didn't they didn't build a bridge for the train. Then that train then would get onto the barge. The whole train, the engine and the caboose and everything would get on that barge and go up the lake, and it would go up to Kaslo and unload coal and all sorts of stuff, feed, grocery supplies, and boats or everything they put on the flat car. And then they would get off in Kaslo and shunt that stuff around, and then they had another engine that would lived in Kaslo. And it would go up to Vertalic. They call it the mining community of Vertalic and Sandon, and up in that direction. Okay, and then they would bring the ore down when they took the good stuff up, the goods up. They'd bring the ore down, and it would go onto that barge.
Really? That must have been a big barge.
Oh yeah, it was a huge barge. You put it was twice as long as the Moët. Well, you see it in the picture. Well, I'm going to shows you, Yeah, and then the ore then goes down to the smelter and Trail. So then it gets smelted and so on and so forth. And then after the Moët had dropped off, the stuff in Kaslo, it would get going and it would go up the lake with the barge again, and the engine, and what supplies they had were up in Lardo and Meadow Creek and all those places up the end of the lake. And they would take, the train would come right off, and it would run up, it would actually take the freight cars and stuff up to these places. And the Moët would sit there overnight. And the next day, when they were all finished with what they were doing, and they usually have a load to go back of poles, cedar poles, all skinned off nice and stuff.
So is freight going every which way?
Yeah.
Lots of it?
Yeah, both directions. That's the only way they could do it and make and stay afloat, Till the trucker and trucking racket got involved, and then that ended that. Train days. Quite interesting. And that, staying with the Moët, my first job in Kaslo was shoveling coal in the Moët. And the Moët would leave Harrop with a full load of coal. And the coal stayed there. You notice the bow of the Moët, its long bow. They filled up that bow section with coal. And that coal was right next to the engineer. The shoveler, the steamer, or whatever, not the engineer, but whatever they were, the ones that shovel the coal. Because coal shoveler, stoker, I think they called them or something.
In the Navy, anyway.
Yeah. So what would happen is he would shovel coal into this thing. At the time he got to Kaslo, the coal would be about 6 or 8 feet from him. So he'd have to, you know, go ahead, and then a lot of footwork. So they hired me and other people after me to bring coal to him, the shoveler, the stoker. And in a wheelbarrow, you shovel it up and bring it and dump it right in front of him on a steel plate that he had there, special steel plate for doing it. And then you throw the coal in, not just like this. You throw it and you give it a handle, a flick like that, and the coal comes off the shovel and it goes like this. And it just like rolls right over from one side of the firebox to the other. And
So
it's thin, eh? And every time it hits it, you go whoosh, like that. It explodes, eh? Because it's so bloody hot in there. It just evaporates into flame, eh?
As fast as you could shovel it in, it would evaporate.
Oh yeah, you're really moving. In order to, that's a lot of work for that steam engine.
Well, how much would you have to shovel in on the trip?
Oh,
All the time shoveling?
oh yeah. Well, not, you know, you get a good head of steam. You don't have to shovel continually, unless you're going up the lake with the barge, and you run into north wind. North wind comes down the lake, and it just really screeches. And if you had to buck into a north wind of a 15 or 20, you've got to really poke the coal to it. Yeah, but if it's calm, which it is in most mornings, if it's calm, you're fine. You have a break. So anyhow, yeah. And on Saturdays, the Moye would leave Harrop and go over to Belfer, which is only a mile away, pick up anybody. It's a passengers and light freight. The light freight consisted of sacks of feed and a case of something or whatever, just boxes and light stuff, eh? And they had a gangplank that they pushed off the bow of the boat and go, and the old Moye would come right up to the beach, right, and land and push her nose right onto the beach, eh? And you'd put this gangplank down, which was a long gangplank, and the crew on the boat would unload whatever had to be unloaded, and they had these carts with steel wheels. I can remember the wheels would be about that big, 6 or 8 inches big around, I mean. And they would go down that ramp just running, because we were heading down. So they'd just run down that ramp, and then at the bottom of the ramp they'd have to really hang on to things and push it up a hill or up a little bit of a hill or whatever they had there to unload it up where it wouldn't get wet, eh? Anyhow, then they ran from that, and they stopped at Ryondell, who was a little community on the west side or east side of the lake, and then they'd go across to Ainsworth, then to Kaslo, and then they would go from Kaslo they would go up to Shuddy's, what they call Shuddy's Bench. Then they would go to the Lardo. No, the Lardo. There's one more stop they'd make across from Lardo. I can't think of the name of the place now, but there's one more. Then they would go over to Lardo, would be their last stop. And they'd unload people in the freight and load whoever wants to go down to catch the train.
Now, the town of Kaslo, what was the main industry?
Mining.
Okay. What kind of mining?
Hard rock, they call it. There's lead, zinc, silver.
Okay.
You know, a little bit of gold, of course, it was mixed in with the silver and stuff, but hardly any. But mostly lead, zinc.
Was it going full bore?
When we arrived, yes, they were going full bore till somewhere in the 70s, I think. Then they started to slow down.
There was lots of money around?
Oh, everybody worked. And they were starting to get into the logging. The company started up Kootenai Forest Products. And it started up and was buying logs and stuff like that, and they were towing them down the lake. And they also had a steam tug. They called it the Grant Hall. it would, if the moyer was broke down or something, it would sub. It was a beautiful, beautiful boat. It was built in Vancouver and came in pieces up to Nelson and was put together in Nelson. Same as the moyer. There's quite a history to that. Well, I'm going to try to see if I can find some of that history, how it was built down in the Fraser River somewhere and transported up in pieces to Nelson. They did the things. They did wonderful things in those days. You know.
I know. It's breathtaking. Where do they get the energy from?
The money?
Well, I imagine from London bankers.
Well, everyone who's back in the mines, those mines, you know.
Americans.
Yeah.
And the English.
You know, they're up from people all over the world were up in that country. You know, mining. Prospectors all over the place. And then I was just trying to think about other functions with that, and the function that comes to mind for me was the section. They call them the section crew that keeps the railroad maintained, and some of the ties get rotten or split or whatever, or they get loose, they have to fix them up, eh? And so I got involved in that for a while.
This was Nelson.
Yeah. It was the head office is out in Nelson, and I worked out of the Kaslo division, eh? And I'm not, a pick and shovel does not fit me at all. I'm not a pick and shovel person. And it just bores me to pieces, and it doesn't, not the work, it's not challenging to dig a hole.
No, I'm the same way. I've got to have my mind occupied.
Yeah.
But it beats shoveling coal.
Oh, yeah, shoveling coal, it seems, it didn't bother me so anywhere near as much because the actual function, you're putting that coal in that firebox properly is rewarding because you got a gauge right here, a great big gauge, and it shows you where your temperature, your steam temperature is supposed to be. The engineer says, I want that temperature at 80 or 90 or whatever. You keep it at that, but and he will every once in a while he'll just lean over from the controls and take a look in there, and he says, it doesn't look very good. And I'll look in there and I think it looks pretty good. But then if I take another look, I'll see black spots. A black spot here and a black spot there and another black spot. There may be half a dozen black spots. They'd be about 2 inches. But you put all those together and you got a 6 inch or so black spot, big black spot. Each black spot doesn't draw any heat.
Well, how big's the boiler? Or
the
furnace?
firebox is, you know, 6 foot by 6 foot or so. It's huge. And you have to have that thing banked properly. And if it doesn't, you get rid of they call them clinkers. And you have a rake there, and you rake those clinkers. You get your butt into gear right away quick and get rid of those clinkers. You get in there and they'll come out and they'll be about so big, you know. The little spot will be at the top where you see, but underneath them is not as hot and as cold also, eh? Or cooler. So you can't have any clinkers. And a good fireman won't have any clinkers at all because he gives that a proper flick, eh? And once you get onto that, when you, like I was telling you earlier, it goes, you give it a flick with a handle so that it lays out evenly over the bed, and the bed is slanting down to the door, high in the back and low in the front, and then a half moon shape, you know, all over like that.
And it has to be burning evenly.
Oh, absolutely.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Otherwise, you don't get it hot enough.
You don't get. When I first started, shoveling coal on a weekend on a work train, Holy smokes, this about killed me. And I had to steam down to about 30 pounds or 30 degrees or whatever it was. It was really, really low. And the engineer was a cranky old guy, you know. And he was really riding my tail.
This is when you were a teenager.
Yeah. I started working with him when I was 14.
Shouldn't you have been at school? Was there any school at 14?
Oh, yeah. This is summertime.
Okay.
Yeah. But I quit school anyhow when I was 15. I spent 2 years in grade 7, and it looked like I was going to spend the third one. And I said, Dad, I guess this is no. I'm going to work. And he tried to talk me out of it. Oh, everybody tried to talk me out of it. Go back to school and learn something. Don't be a ditch digger all your life. And I said, I'll go back to school. Never. What does a teacher really know when it comes right down to it? He's never done anything but been going to school. Right?
No worldly experience.
No.
Or not as much as somebody that's...
No, you tell him to go out there and build a house or try to build a house. You can't do that. You can't do bugger all. You know, that was my argument. It didn't go too good with most people, mind you.
No, because I know your dad could say, well, just another 2 years, just finish, and then you can learn about the world. But if you weren't happy there, what's the point?
Unhappy, and I was, I was 6 foot tall after the second year in grade 7, and everybody else was 4 foot tall or 5 foot tall. You know, little, small. They're younger, like 2 or 3 years younger than me. And I was really, really unhappy. But I'm not advocating, for goodness sakes, that the kids drop out and go to work, because that's not now anyhow. There's hardly any work, you know, for one thing. And you've got to have an education, they say. But I know people that got a grade 7 education, they're pulling down 6 figures a year. So, another thing I was just thinking about, you know, you get off the train, there was a Greyhound bus.
We're at Nelson now.
Yeah, the Greyhound bus depot in Nelson. And the bus driver's name was Guy Browl, and he had a hearing aid in, and that would be back when we first arrived.
You met him when you first arrived? You met him when you first arrived?
Yeah, that was when I met him, well, within a few times, because he was a friend of the family, see? And of course he ran the bus, and he was the nicest man. And real gentle, and so anyhow, they left the bus in a garage overnight up in Kaslo Motor Transport, the freight truck where it worked out of. They put the bus in there every night, so it was warm, kept warm. So it would start every morning, and it was every day. It would go to Nelson, and then it would go to Castlegar and up to Trail. And it would have whatever it did in Trail, and turn around and pick up freight and passengers and come back to Nelson and back to Kaslo. It would be back at Kaslo just after supper every night. A daily bus service.
Now these were dirt roads?
Total dirt roads.
Good condition?
Yes, those days, yes. And actually, the buses were Courier 85s. They were made by Courier Company, and they were Model 85. And it's another story, but I'll just touch on it here. I bought one of those buses years later, years and years later, from Brewster in Calgary to run skiers. And it was a Courier 85, the same thing, and it was about 30 or 40 years old. Beautiful bus, beautiful, beautiful old bus. And they're just like, the Cadillacs, eh? They just don't wear out.
What colour?
Silver, of course. Not pink. But anyhow, that's another story when I get into the bus thing. But You know, and then
There wasn't. How many people was Kaslo in those days?
I would just guessing. I would think 1,200 or so.
Okay, but
If Kaslo was, you got outside of Kaslo a few miles to the north, you've got Shuddy's Bench, and then to the south you've got Mirror Lake, and then not too far from there you got Ainsworth, Hot Springs and stuff.
no, there were no paved roads.
No, not even the main drag.
Okay.
But
And
they were,
many cars, many vehicles.
oh yeah, it seemed to be quite a few cars.
Enough for traffic lights.
No traffic lights. I don't even know there were stop signs. You know, you just drifted through them. I guess I can't remember. Yet I learned to drive there, so they must have had stop signs. It was for a young man, or a young boy, to arrive in Kaslo in 1940, whatever it was now, 44, 45, and your uncle to be the one and only policeman there.
And you were 10 years old.
And I was 10 years old or something like that. Yeah, 10 years old. And then my dad got appointed as magistrate.
No.
Yeah. An uncle was the only policeman and my dad who was a magistrate. Well, my cousin, my uncle's son, who was 5 years older than me, just welcomed me because I would split the blame. We got blamed for everything. We'd be down at the coast visiting our grandparents, you know, and something would happen in Kaslo. Well, it was Jack and David that did it. And we weren't even there. We got blamed for everything.
So you must have done something at some point to get blamed for it.
Oh yeah, well, we were just kids, you know, to take the odd street light out or something like that, or
So your
put an
dad.
insulator on a pole.
So that would sort of embarrass your dad, right?
Well, yeah, but that was the payoff for doing that is not fun. I'd be grounded. Jimmy and I, my best friend Jimmy Jardine, we never got into any trouble at all. Not even just trivial stuff, because our interests were, and our parents made that interest a reality, and that was fishing. You put a fishing pole in a kid's hand and he gets hooked on fishing. He ain't going to go and get hooked on drugs or hooked on whatever.
Crime.
No, he's not. He ain't got time for that. And that's pretty near this. All my kids are hooked on fishing, girls and all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And coming from Gabriola,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
better fish.
Oh yeah. I catch fish off the dock. You get silver perch every day, you know.
But were the fish bigger? In
No, they were bigger in the ocean when we were down in Gabriola,
Oh,
for sure. You know, because you got lingcod that weigh sometimes 8-10 pounds. You'd really, with your little hand line, that would be quite a thrill, you know.
but you had a little skiff to.
Oh yeah,
You fished in a skiff.
I can't remember when I never had a little rowboat. That was the thing, we had it when we were in Kaslo. If my marks in school were poor or something, I did something or I didn't do something I was supposed to do, my punishment was, well then you could leave the boat tied up just tomorrow. You know, because after supper, after I did my chores, I always went right around in the bay, because I used to get some nice trout right in the bay, you know. But if I didn't get home when I was supposed to, or didn't do something, then my punishment was leave the boat tied up.
But then they didn't get any fish.
Well, there were no shortage of fish.
No. Okay.
No. So anyhow, that was kind of cool. When I look back at it, you know, either that or the woodpile. I never got beaten ever. I got spankings, but you know, not very hard ones. You know, something I could tolerate. But I don't call it a beating. But one time Dad clenched his fist and was going to give me one, and my mother said, "You hit him with that fist, and you're dead." And he turned around and looked at her and put his fist, like, unclenched his fist right away quick, boy. I looked over at Mom, her eyes were just sparkling, and boy, she meant it. Boy, she would have picked up something and clubbed him one if he had started that stuff. But no, she kept him in line in that department for sure. So, anyhow. And that is about what I can remember about the Moyer. You know, it was just a phenomenal boat. And you've seen stern wheelers and how they're built, and they're built with, if you just notice, the cable goes from one end to the other, and it comes up over two poles or stick up in the middle and down on the bow.
Oh, never
and
noticed.
they got big turnbuckles on them. And what that does, it brings the bow up and the stern up.
Bends the boat.
Yeah, bends the boat up. And only the shallowest part of the boat then is in the middle.
So it's designed to be that way.
Yeah, designed for that. So when you're running a river with rapids and stuff, you want to get that bow up so the rapids go under the boat instead of pushing against the boat. You follow me?
Yeah.
So the water then, when it's up like this, it hits and goes under and lifts the boat and gives it momentum. Or gives it easier to push with the paddle, say.
Were the paddles either side or
No, in the back. Right in the stern.
just one big wheel?
Yeah. They got tremendous power, you know. With those
Well,
paddles.
I would believe it.
Tremendous power. You take that big barge in the train, and in no time at all, he's going full speed. You can hear this thing, the paddle flapping, hitting the water, pop, 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 really fast, eh?
How fast does it turn? About the same speed as a boat's going, right?
Oh yeah, well, but it's going. Yeah, I don't know, but oh boy, I tell you, there's sure a lot of power there.
And that's driven by steam.
Also, not pretty much, 100%. They're wonderful, you know. They got the old guy that runs that show. He sits right in the middle with the engine, and he got all the controls there. And the telegraph that comes down from the wheelhouse. You got one of those telegraphs? They call them telegraphs. They're big brass things, and it's full ahead.
Yeah, I see them.
You know, half a head, 3/4 a head, whatever.
I see many old war films in them.
Yeah, and then he sets it up in the wheelhouse, and it sets the same exact orders down by the engineer. So the old man will pull it back to 3/4 a head instead of full head, because full head you're using more coal than you can shovel. You only use full head when you have to.
And then once you got the message, he would just move a lever on the
That's
engine.
right, he'd adjust things down there. Yeah. Well, they got the same system today on the boats that run, same exact. But it's electronic, and you never had anything electronic in those days. So that actually covers getting to Kaslo. And now I'm going to be about 10 or 11, and so then I go into 12 and 13. Things start to change when I start to do odd jobs and
Driving snowplows.
yeah, doing snowplow and doing all that stuff that I prefer to do than go to school.
So you just took temporary jobs as they come.
Oh yeah, yeah. Temporary jobs, and then logging, temporary, learning, logging. And I had the best teacher in the world, was Cecil Pangburn, and who I just adored. He helped me and Jimmy so much to become a good person. He was
just generally.
Hmm?
Not at any specific job.
No. He was just generally.
And he was a friend of your dad's?
He was a friend of the family. He was a cousin, I think, to my buddy Jimmy. No, he was just the nicest man I've ever met.
And was your dad, did he stay with you in Kaslo?
My dad?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He eventually, we arrived in 44, I think it was, and he arrived in 45 or something like that. As soon as he got discharged.
But no, he was magistrate for a while.
Well, yeah, as soon as he got discharged, he arrived in Kaslo. And then he became magistrate.
Discharged from the RCMP?
No, Navy.
The Navy.
He was asked before he even got home if he would take it over, take the magistrates over, because the guy was retiring, the old guy that was there.
But that wouldn't be a full-time job.
Yeah, it was a monthly pay thing, because there's more to being a magistrate than just going to court. You could sign legal papers and witness all sorts of stuff, and I think he could even marry. Yes, he could, because he married people. So there's all sorts of stuff goes on, and he got paid an annual wage.
And he had an office?
Yeah, in the courthouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he'd just show up every day, or?
No, he didn't have to do that. He just, when needed, they'd make an appointment through the court clerk for him. So it was a good deal.
Yeah.
You know, because those days you didn't get pensions much, you know. And he had to borrow a whole pile of money from the DVA to get that Marine Service up and running, eh? So that was quite an undertaking.
Go in that bay?
Yeah.
That you showed me earlier on?
Yeah.
And you bought property?
Yeah, oh yeah. It was,
in that bay?
Yeah, we owned the whole bay.
What year would that be?
What year?
Yeah.
I think 45. As soon as he arrived, he bought it. Because him and Mum talked about having it was like an auto court business, like renting boats and selling engines and fishing tackle and.
Oh, so that was his ambition.
Yeah, that was his ambition, and to have this marina, which he had, and then Mum would cook breakfast for all the guests, and get paid, of course, you know. So they'd have 15 or 20 fishermen there at a time. And Dad, of course, was looking after all the boats and the motors and all that sort of stuff. Mum was looking after Mum, and she had some helper in the summer when they were real busy to make beds and stuff.
How far out of Kaslo was that?
Oh, just you could see it from Kaslo, just right there.
Oh, okay.
It's just in the other end of the bay. I could walk into town from our house up there, walk around the bay and into town in about 15 minutes. You could drive out there in 5 minutes.
No, he was retired from the RCMP.
Who was what?
Your dad was retired.
Yeah.
So he was getting a pension from that? No.
No, I don't know. He'd had enough. He was on a leave of absence, an indefinite leave of absence, because they wouldn't let him retire completely because they wanted him. You see, they offered him that inspector to be an inspector with the RCMP, but he'd had enough.
Is that better than a detective?
Inspector is as high as you can go.
Okay, so he was already a detective.
No, he wasn't. He was a detective. He was the detective also with provincial police.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was the detective of provincial police, the sergeant detective, if I'm not mistaken.
And then, was that when he went to Europe, when he was a detective? Or?
No, he went to Europe when the war was going full bore, and they took him out of the provincial police and stuck him in there.
But at that time, when he left for Europe, was he a detective or a constable?
Oh, he was a sergeant, detective sergeant.
Yeah,
Then they gave him the rank of lieutenant commander in the Navy. So he was
what would a lieutenant commander do on a ship?
He
Commander.
would, commander is the head guy. He's the captain, the commander. Lieutenant commander, who is a lesser, but he was in charge of reconnaissance, which is like a detective in a way. You know, they get off and they go snooping around like spies. They were kind of spies.
So you didn't had nothing to do with running the ship?
No, none whatsoever.
Okay.
No. And he hired ships, you know, because there was a whole pile of seine boats on the west coast that they got. They called it the Gumboot Navy, and he was in charge of that. And he went and found all these boats that would work. And there's actually a picture out, if you remind me, on the way out. Yeah, it's on the wall in the back room there, not where we were, not in the bedroom, but on the entrance there, one of his boats, right out here on the west coast. There.
And do you know where he went, where he travelled?
Well, just up and down the coast. They were looking for subs and stuff.
This coast?
Huh?
In Europe? Or
Here.
Here, okay.
So they didn't go to Europe. None of his boats went there.
But your father went to Europe.
They shipped him over there 2 or 3 times and back. You don't dare leave him over there because they'll hunt him down and should kill him, Because he was one of the guys that was in charge of all the Sikhs that went over there and slit throats. So they wanted to get rid of him. That's why they took us away and hid us during the war. Couldn't find Jack or his family anywhere. That's the whole name of the game. It was a horrible time. He's a different man when he came home. He wasn't the lovey-dovey dad that went to war.
But didn't you say he was only in Europe temporarily?
Oh yeah.
So it was the war this side that had an effect on him, or the war this side?
Oh yeah, well the thing is that there's U-boats right out here by Marble Island spotted.
But there was no combat?
No, but they were ready to, they were positioning themselves to do damage. Totally. And same as the Prince Rupert, they had subnets across the harbour. You know where you go into the ferry?
Yeah.
You had nets across there to catch the subs. Oh no, those buggers are everywhere. Oh yeah. He gets every once in a while, Dad would get telling stories about the subs that were out there. And that's what these little boats were for, Because they were very maneuverable. They're just big seine boats is all they were. Actually, one of them came here as the Arrow Post.
Really?
Yeah, but remember, not the old Arrow Post, but the next one they got was a big wooden one?
What year would that be? 1970s?
Just a few years ago here.
Not the same one that I remember from the 70s, 80s?
No,
Okay.
that was the original seine boat, Arrow, the small seine boat, 50-footer. So this was about an 80-footer. Yeah.
This 80-footer was one your father had to deal with?
It was one of them. There's a whole pile like that. And anyhow, they would have launching devices on the back of these boats.
Depth charges?
For launching mines? Depths, what do you call them?
Depth charge.
Yeah, depth charges, yeah.
For subs?
Yeah. They had devices on the back of these boats for that, so.
And these boats were patrolling from the border, US border, to Alaska?
Yeah. The west coast of Canada was his domain. He worked with the Americans also. You want them as an ally, or you did in those days anyhow, because they got the power.
Bigger guns, bigger boats?
Oh yeah, everything's bigger and better. When you got an economy like they have down there, you got all sorts of money, or had. There's always been money down there. There's always money for war.